Today we're going to learn about the perfect tense, which is actually the second of three perfect tenses that we will learn about in Latin. There are certain times when you should use the perfect tense, and that is when you are discussing things that are completed that happened in the past. So it has to be a completed past condition or a completed past event. The way that we form perfect tense verbs is very different from the three tenses that we learned earlier this year. You're going to start with the third principal part, and that's contrasted with the others that use the second. And instead of dropping off the RE, we're going to drop the I off of the third principal part. So I kind of jokingly say that this one's a violent tense because we take its I out. And after you take the I out, you're going to add some perfect tense endings, and that is going to give you your perfect tense verb. And again, this tense is very different from the other verbs we've had in that it uses a different principal part, so it's going to be starting with something different than we've seen before. So, as we've seen before, we've typically used that second principal part, but now we have to switch principal parts and use number 3 here, and we're going to drop its I out, and that's going to give us a new stem called the perfect active stem, to which we'll add our perfect active endings. So the perfect active stem for the verb vocare, to call, would be vocale. The perfect stem for the verb to move is mo. The perfect stem for the verb to care for is curar. The perfect stem for to retain is retenue. And our two irregular verbs that we've been working with so far this year have been sum esse and posum posse. And the perfect stem for esse is just fu, and the perfect stem for pose is just potu. So once you form those stems, you just put the endings on as you would with any other tense, and the endings are as follows. For an I verb, to say I in the perfect tense, you just add the letter I on. To say you with your subject to, it's isti, isti. And for a he, she, it verb, it's it. To say we, our nos form, it's imus. To say vos, it's similar to the to form, in that it's istis, istis. And for the they form, ai, ai, ea, it's erunt, erunt. So we of course have a couple of sample verbs. Our first sample verb is ludere, which means to play. And typically we would use that ludere, drop the re off, and add our endings, but now since we're dealing with the new tense, we have to use that third principal part of lucy, and we're going to drop the I off and add our endings. So for the ego, it would be Lucy, and since this is a past tense, we would translate that as I played. For to, we'd add that isti form and make it lucisti, that's you played. And then for the he, she, it, the cow, the monkey, the farmer played, it'd be lucite. To say the nos form is lucimus, we played. For the y'all form, vos, it's lucistis, y'all played. And then to say he or she plural, or the cows or the farmers, that would be lucerunt, they played. We have an additional example verb with do dare dedi, and again normally we would use that dare form, but instead we need to use the third principal part and add our perfect endings to that. So we will take dedi to say I gave, dedisti to say you gave, dedit to say he or she gave, dedimus to say we gave, dedistis to say y'all gave, and dederunt to say they gave. Now, perhaps one of the best things about the perfect tenses we're going to deal with is that all of the irregular verbs we know actually behave regularly in these tenses. So, much like you would with any other verb, you take that third principal part and add your endings. So for sum esse, instead of memorizing unusual forms, we just use the endings for any other regular perfect tense verb. So fui and potui, fuisti and potuisti, fuit and potuint. Fuimus and potuimus, fuistis and potuistis, and fuerant and potuerant. Again, these behave like a completely regular perfect tense verb, and therefore we translate them in the past tense as well. So this would be I was and I was able. You were and you were able, etc. Now the last thing that makes the perfect tense a little trickier is that Latin technically has 3 past tenses. We are going to learn the third past tense in a later chapter, but we need to understand the difference between the perfect tense and the tense we learned already, the imperfect tense. Now, as we know, the imperfect tense is used for ongoing actions in the past. For example, we translate them as subject was verbing or subject used to verb. So we kind of think of it as something we'd use to talk about habitual things or things with an uncertain beginning and an uncertain end. Contrast that with the perfect tense, which we use for completed actions in the past, and we would translate that as subject verbed or subject had verbed. And that implies that it is a definite start, definite stop. So I kind of think of these both with lines. The imperfect is kind of a wavy line. It's uncertain when it started, uncertain when it stopped, but we know for sure that it happened at some time in the past. Contrasted with the perfect tense, which has a definite start and a definite stop, and they're definitely in the past. And again, we can kind of also see that in a difference in their translations and in their formation as well. The imperfect tense, you'll start with that second principal part with our example verb ambulo, ambulare, and we'll drop the re, and we'll add our imperfect ending to end up with ambulabas, which we would translate differently from ambulavi, which we drop the I off of, and add our perfect tense ending to get ambulavisti. So as you can see, they both look different. They're both past tenses, but ambulabas would be you used to walk, perhaps habitually, or you used to walk before something else happened, contrasted with ambulavisti, which would be you walked, and maybe that was you walked on Friday for 3 hours. So as you can see, they're very similar in that they're both past tenses, but they both have different contexts. If you have any questions about when to use the perfect tense or how to form the perfect tense, please let me know.